Hi everyone, I hope you're all doing really well. Back today to talk about my most anticipated releases for the month of June. We're starting to get into the summer months, so I feel like a lot of publishers are thinking ahead to that, thinking about what we might want to take on holiday with us, and there's some really fantastic books on the horizon. First up, of course, I couldn't talk about June releases without talking about the new Taylor Jenkins Reid. Coming out on the 3rd of June, we have Atmosphere. I have to date read every Taylor Jenkins Reid book and really enjoyed all of them. It does make me think that maybe one day I should do like a ranking video, going least favourite to most favourite. I'm not going to say worst to best because I don't think there are any worst books. But yeah, I'm very much anticipating this one. In the summer of 1980, astrophysics professor Joan Goodwin begins training to be an astronaut at Houston's Johnson Space Center, alongside an exceptional group of fellow candidates. Top Gun pilot Hank Redmond, mission specialist John Griffin and Lydia Danes, warm-hearted Donna Fitzgerald, and Vanessa Ford, the magnetic and mysterious aeronautical engineer. As the new astronauts prepare for their first flights, Joan finds a passion and a love she never imagined, and begins to question everything she believes about her place in the observable universe. Then, in December of 1984, on mission STS-LR9, everything changes in an instant. Atmosphere is Taylor Jenkins Reid at her best, transporting readers to iconic times and places, creating complex protagonists, and telling a passionate and soaring story about the transformative power of love, this time among the stars. We know I always have to have a history book in the mix, and coming out on the 5th of June is 10 Mistakes That Changed History, The Reckless Rulers, Monumental Mishaps, and Disastrous Decisions That Have Shaped Our World by Paul Coulter. I really love an accessible beginner's history, and I feel like this is going to provide exactly that, looking at the various missteps of history and how they have profoundly shaped our world. Looking at many of the biggest characters and events of the last 2,500 years, from Cleopatra to the sinking of the Titanic, historian and comedian Paul Coulter explores how, despite the glamour, historical turning points were often the result of very human errors. Blending history, storytelling, and comedy, 10 Mistakes That Changed History is history as you wish you had learnt it back at school. A greatest hits of bad leadership decisions, misguided acts of heroism, and catastrophic lapses in judgment. These are the stories that have shaped our world, all with monumental consequences. Because sometimes it's nice to know that no matter how bad your day is, the greatest names in history stuffed up too. That's always what I'm wanting to get at when it comes to people of the past, is that no matter how grand and important they seem to be, they are humans who messed up too, and often their mishaps had far-reaching consequences. Alongside Taylor Jenkins Reid, another big name author who has a new book coming out is V.E. Schwab, who I particularly love for her Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. And coming out on the 10th of May is a new book, Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. And I'm hoping, as a fan of Addie LaRue, that this might appeal to me as well, since it does have a little bit of a historical fiction element to it. 1532, Santo Domingo de la Calzada. A young girl grows up wild and wily. Her beauty is only outmatched by her dreams of escape. But Maria knows that she can only ever be a prize or a pawn in the games played by men. When an alluring stranger offers an alternate path, Maria makes a desperate choice. She vows to have no regrets. This is a story about love. 1827, London. A young woman lives an idyllic but cloistered life on her family's estate, until a moment of forbidden intimacy sees her shipped off to London. Charlotte's tender heart and seemingly impossible wishes are swept away by an invitation from a beautiful widow. But the price of freedom is higher than she could have imagined. This is a story about rage. 2019, Boston. College was supposed to be her chance to be someone new. That's why Alice moved halfway across the world, leaving her old life behind. But after an out-of-character one-night stand leaves her questioning her past, her present, and her future, Alice throws herself into the hunt for answers and revenge. This is a story about life, how it ends, and how it starts. Maybe I'm just a bit too enamoured by Addie LaRue, but talking about an alluring stranger offering an alternate path does make me wonder if we're going to get a repeat appearance of Luke the Devil. Is this taking place in the same world as Addie LaRue? I am very curious to find out. Coming out on the 12th of June is The Dandy, A People's History of Sartorial Splendour by Peter Andersson. So this is another non-fiction history, and I'm particularly excited about this one as it's an author that I've previously worked with. This one's not coming out from my publisher, but from Oxford University Press, and Peter Andersson is just a really fantastic author and just a generally lovely man, so I am very keen to pick up his new book, especially since it crosses over with one of my loves, which is fashion history and just general social histories. The historical figure of the dandy has commonly been described as an upper-class gentleman, often exemplified by well-known men such as Beau Brummel, Charles Baudelaire, Oscar Wilde, and Max Beerbohm. But there is a broader history to be told about the dandy, one that incorporates unknown men from the lower strata of society. The dandy, A People's History, constitutes the first ever history of those dandies who emanated from the less privileged layers of the populace. The lowly clerks, shop assistants, domestic servants, and labourers who increasingly during the modern age have emerged as style-conscious men about town. Peter Andersson shows that dandyism is far from just an elite phenomenon represented by famous poets and artists. He shows how dandyism as a popular youth subculture grew into an influential cultural movement from the days of Beau Brummel in the early 19th century to the age of mods in the 1950s. Above all, this is a story about how fundamental aspects of modern culture such as fashion, style and conduct have been shaped from below just as much as from above. I really love histories that twist common perceptions, common narratives, and really turn them on their head, make us look at things from a different perspective. And speaking of that, next up, coming out on the 15th of June, we have The Shakespeare Ladies Club, The Forgotten Women Who Rescued the Bawdy Bard by Christine and Jonathan Hainsworth. Following Shakespeare's death in 1616, 4 women were crucial in ensuring the original work of the bard was not forgotten. This was the Shakespeare Ladies Club, formed in 1736. The club was a quartet of women of quality, 3 from the aristocracy and 1 a writer, who ran a stationery shop, all educated and so enraptured by the plays of William Shakespeare that they met to read and discuss his transcendent genius. Not content with this, they used their power and influence to campaign successfully for a statue of their literary idol to be placed in Westminster Abbey. Shamefully, to this day, their efforts remain overlooked, as credit for the statue is still given to a group of men. These women put their considerable wealth behind their lobbying for more Shakespeare plays. They convinced theatre managers to put on the original versions by promising to underwrite any financial losses. They had to overcome a post-Puritan culture that believed theatre to be immoral and no place for respectable women. After nearly 300 years, this book finally tells their remarkable story. In the author's words, the obstacles they faced were daunting, yet Susanna Shaftesbury, Elizabeth Boyd and the 2 Marys, Montague and Cowper, each like the goddess Diana the Archer, fired an aesthetic arrow that would strike a bullseye in Britain and eventually the entire world. As reviving Shakespeare has positively affected human culture to this day. As a big fan of The Blue Stockings, which was a similar intellectual history looking at women from the 18th century who really popularised literary salons and women's place in intellectual culture, this is another book that seems right up my street. Coming out on the 19th of June is a historical fiction, Love and Sex and Frankenstein by Caroline Lee. You'll probably know that I really love learning about Mary Shelley and Mary Wollstonecraft. I love Romantic Outlaws by Charlotte Gordon, which is a non-fiction dual biography of the 2 women's lives. And I loved Love and Fury by Samantha Silver, which was a fictionalisation of Mary Wollstonecraft's life. However, last year I read Mary or the Birth of Frankenstein by Anna Cow and was really disappointed. I'm yet to come across a fictionalisation of the life of Mary Shelley that I feel really does her justice, but that is what I'm hoping to get from this book. Lake Geneva, 1816, the dark summer that birthed a monster. 18-year-old Mary Shelley has fled London with her lover Percy Shelley and her sister Claire. Tormented by Shelley's betrayals, haunted by the loss of their baby, and suspicious of her sister's intentions, Mary seeks sanctuary. But Lord Byron's villa, lying under ominous, ash-shrouded skies, feels more like a trap. When Byron suggests each guest write a supernatural tale, Mary is as drawn to the challenge as she is, unexpectedly, to Byron. And so an idea begins to form in her mind. It spills out of her in thick black ink. A thing given life is before her. Day and night she is possessed. Heart and mind, body and soul. But is she in control? Or is it? In this hauntingly evocative feminist retelling, Caroline Lee delves into the female rage, creative madness and the steamy scandal that bore the world's famous work of Gothic fiction. And then finally, also coming out on the 19th of June, another history of mishaps. We have An Accidental History of Tudor England, From Daily Life to Sudden Death by Stephen Gunn and Tomasz Gromelski. We know I love a Tudor history. We know I love anything that is going to get people more engaged in Tudor history. And so similarly to The 10 Mistakes That Made Britain, I feel like this is going to be another one that's kind of taking Tudor history and the Tudor court off its pedestal and something that is bringing out the human error, all the mishaps and mayhem that have shaped this age. How did ordinary people live in Tudor England? This unique history unearths the ways they died to find out. Uncovering thousands of coroner's reports, An Accidental History of Tudor England explores the history of everyday life and everyday death in a world far from the intrigues of Hampton Court Palace, Shakespeare's plots and the Spanish Armada. Here, farming, building and travel were dangerous. Fruit trees killed more people than guns, and sheep killed about the same number as coal mines. Men stabbed themselves by playing football, and women drowned in hundreds fetching water. Going to church had its dangers, especially when it came to bell ringing. Archery practice was perilous, and haystacks claimed numerous victims. Restless animals roamed the roads, which contained some potholes so deep men could drown, and drown they did. From bear attacks in North Oxford to a bowls on ice incident on the Thames, this book uses a remarkable trove of sources and stories to put common folk back into the picture of Tudor England, bringing the reality of their world to life as never before. I have a feeling that if you enjoy stupid deaths from horrible histories, you'll really enjoy this book. So there we go, those are some of the books coming out in June that I'm really looking forward to. Do let me know which of these appeal to you, and alternatively please let me know about any June release that you are looking forward to that I didn't mention. I would love to hear from you. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks. Bye!